Howdy folks, hope you all had a good weekend, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. Before we go any further, you may hear some strange noises during the playback of this week's episode. That's because one of my two cats, Juicy, the big ginger Dutch one, she's actually parked herself right on my elbow, the elbow that's connected to the hand that's holding my mouse as I'm recording this episode, staring fascinated at my video recording software as I'm actually recording this episode of Mingles with Jingles. She does this a lot. I suppose it's understandable. I mean, I spend most of the day sitting in front of the computer monitor and, oh wait, where's she going now? Yeah, she's a big old unit. That was the desk creaking as she moved behind the second monitor to get onto the top of the cat tree next to the computer desk. Yeah, she's a heckin' old chonker, all right. Oh Lord, she coming. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose it's quite natural. I mean, she sees that, she doesn't understand what's going on the monitor, but she knows that it's important to me, and so she's interested. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, isn't that cute? Well, it is. But it's not so funny when she decides to park herself right in front of my face, like literally between my face and the monitor, and then start purring at it while I'm trying to record or play something. Akazuki pulls the same shit as well. Well, it's not exactly the same. I mean, it's the same, ooh, what's this that Pappy spends all of his days sitting in front of and staring at? It's important to him, so it's important to me too. Now, Akazuki likes to actually lie down on and go to sleep on my mouse hand while it's holding the mouse. Have you ever tried playing World of Warships when you've got a cat on your hand? Tried playing anything while you've got a cat on your mouse hand? So yeah, the two cats love to pay attention to whatever it is that I happen to be doing, which is cute, but it can be kind of irritating if I'm trying to do something important. You know, not playing a game or whatever, but if I'm trying to actually record a video. And some of you have noticed, particularly over the last week, that you've heard some strange noises in the background, and that's usually Zhu having a good old purr, because she's a very noisy purrer, and she's usually asleep right next to my mouse, flat out on my mouse pad, right in front of my second monitor. Either that, or she's frantically trying to catch the mouse cursor as it moves across the screen. I think, on average, since I got Akazuki, it's taken me... There she goes again. This is the sort of thing I'm talking about. Can you hear that? Akazuki? What the fuck are you doing now? As I was saying, since I got Akazuki, I think on average it's taken about 30% longer for me to do each video. Because she's a Maine Coon. And Maine Coons are very, very talkative. Juicy tends to be very, very quiet. She doesn't actually meow much, but Akazuki, holy shit. Now what you can hear is her going at her scratching post. This is her way of letting me know that I should be paying attention to her. What's probably going to happen now is she's going to leave the room, looking at me the whole time, which is her way of letting me know that I need to follow her and play chase with her. What's she up to now? Oh no, she's back in the bag. Akazuki, what are you doing in the bag? Stay out of the bag, Akazuki. One word from me, and she does whatever the fuck she wants. So this is why it takes 30% longer, at least, to get a video done. Because I have to keep stopping the recording. And it's not like with a dog you can say, quiet, lie down, go to your bed, and the dog will do what you tell it to do. Have you ever tried telling a cat what to do? Yeah, it doesn't work out too well. So you have to wait for them to get bored. And while I'm waiting for them to get bored, I can't record anything. She's still determined to get to the bottom of whatever's in that bag. Akazuki, there is nothing in the bag. Now she's pushing it around the floor with her face. Akazuki, what the hell are you doing? What's up, baby? Eh? Oh, I see. So, in response to the strange cat noises that people, particularly headphone users, have been picking up on in the last week or two, somebody suggested, why don't you just shut them out of the room while you're recording? Yeah, I did try that once with each of the cats. Didn't work out too well. Can tell you're not a cat owner. So, if Juicy is on the wrong side of the door that she wants to get through, she will just start scratching at it. And she will keep this up for an hour if she needs to. And Juicy actually has different gears when it comes to scratching at a door. She'll start off in low gear, it's a sort of kind of noise, and then she kind of starts ratcheting it up. It's very difficult to ignore, trust me. And she will do this for a very, very long time. And the thing is, she probably wouldn't have given a shit about what was on the other side of the door if you hadn't shut the door on her in the first place, because cats are like that. Cats are like teenagers. If you want them to care about something, tell them they can't have it. Okay? Akazuki has a different approach. If I'm on one side of a barrier and Akazuki's on the other, and it doesn't have to be the recording studio door, it can be the kitchen. We don't generally let the cats into the kitchen. We've got a pet gate on the kitchen door. She will cry and cry and cry and cry, and it's the most pitiful thing you have ever heard in your life, and it's also extremely fucking loud. So shutting the cats out of the room while I'm recording really isn't an option. If anything, it would make it worse. And apart from anything else, I love them both, and I love having them around. And if that means that you get the occasional fat Juicy purring going on as she snores away in the background, or every now and then Akazuki starts demanding attention, well, that's a small price to pay. Anyway, I had intended to start off this episode of Mingles with Jingles explaining that I had actually started recording this episode very, very late in the day, and also I think I'm coming down with a cold again. And the reason I started recording very late in the day was because Sunday afternoon, because obviously I record these videos the day before. Sunday afternoon I thought, what shall I do today? I know, I'll do a bit of modelling. But nothing too big, because I don't want to be sitting in front of the modelling desk for hours and hours and hours. I have an episode of Mingles with Jingles to do today, so I'll just do something small. Well, anyway, you may be aware, if you follow me on Twitter, Instagram or Facebook, that I'm building a 135 scale KV2. Now, that's actually quite a big project, but I finished it mostly yesterday. But to go with it, I'm also building the crew, sort of relaxing around the tank, a bunch of Russian infantrymen just relaxing on the grass next to the tank, another Russian soldier escorting a bunch of wounded German prisoners behind the lines. I've got some Russian road signs and some 152mm ammo crates complete with ammunition. So I thought, I'll build one of the ammo crates. That's a small job. That won't take long. Fuck me. It's a wooden box. I mean, it's 6 sides. Okay, there's a couple of inserts as well to hold the ammunition, but the ammo, the shell and the propellant casing, 2 pieces. Guess how many parts went into making the rest of the box? If you said 14 to 16, you're spot on. I mean, what the fuck? 4 hours it took. 4 hours to build a fucking box. I could have built the real thing in half the time. 4 hours. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the results, and you'll get to see it, well, not in this week's Workshop Wednesday, that's going to be the KV2 itself, but in the week after. But if you were wondering why I don't kick out a Workshop Wednesday video every week, this is why. Because it takes 4 hours to build a fucking box. Holy shit. I think I did a pretty good job of it, though. I've stuck some pictures of it up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you know, the usual. But 4 hours to build a box. I mean, It's going to be worth it when it all goes together, but we're probably talking at least a month before the whole thing's done. And I've seen some crazy amounts of detail on some of the model builds that people do and put up on YouTube. There's a couple of guys in particular, Plasmo, who I think is Polish and is just astonishingly talented. He does all kinds of tanks and aircraft, and he's even done a couple of Star Wars models. His ATST in particular is just astonishingly good. And I have the exact same kit, but mine's not going to look anywhere near as good as his. But some of the level of detail that goes into making these models is just astonishing. I mean, the M3 Lee that I did in the last workshop Wednesday, I've seen full interior kits for those, but I never really saw the point. I mean, yes, you can fully build the engine and the transmission, the turret basket, the radios, the battery holders, absolutely everything inside the hull of your tank. But what's the point? You're not going to see any of it because it's inside the tank. I don't get it. I mean, I kind of do. People just like building things. They like knowing that it's perfect. Even if you can't see all of the detail, they just like knowing that it's all there. I don't think I'm ever going to go to that level of dedication. But the KV2 kit that I built was kind of like that in some ways and then not in others. There was no full interior kit. You could build the engine, for example, but only the top of the engine, only the bit that would have been visible under the engine cover if the engine cover wasn't closed. So what was the point of that? Also the periscopes on the turret. And bear in mind, there's only one hatch leading into the turret, and I have built it open, but it's a tiny little hatch for the commander. And you can't see the inside of the periscopes from it. But the inside of the periscopes are actually modelled inside the turret. Why? And it's weird what they've chosen to model inside the tank and what they haven't. Like the insides of the periscopes and the insides of the viewports, even though you're never going to see them, but they haven't chosen to model the turret basket or the seats or any of that. The gun itself, you built fully. The breech, the mantlet, the pintle, everything. And again, you're never going to see any of it. So it's kind of bizarre what they chose on this kit to model on the interior of the tank and what they didn't. I mean, if you're going to do any of it, you may as well do all of it. But they've taken some things and done them, and then most of the other things, and they haven't. So it's a weird little kit. But it's a good-looking model overall. Oh, and it's also the first thing I ever airbrushed. Yes, I got an airbrush. I know somebody's going to ask the question, so I'll tell you now. It's an Iwata HPCS, because basically they seem to be the ones that everybody uses. And probably for a good reason. It does seem to be very, very good. Don't get too excited, though. I haven't done anything fancy. I mean, I've never used an airbrush before, so all I've done is used it to apply the undercoat and the base coat. I didn't want to risk messing the entire model up by trying to get too adventurous with an airbrush before I'm really familiar with using it. But anyway, enough about model making. The only reason I mentioned model making in the first place was to explain why I started recording this episode of Mingles with Jingles much, much later than normal. Because it took me 4 hours to make a fucking box. As a way of explaining why this was probably going to be a shorter than average episode of Mingles, and yet here we are, nearly 14 minutes in, and I still haven't really talked about anything. There was one thing in particular that I did want to talk about this week. I got an email from Patreon a couple of days ago. Don't worry, this isn't the part where I pimp out my Patreon page. Although now's as good a time as any to thank everybody who does support me on Patreon. Thank you once again for your continued support. What this email was about the donation tiers that I have on Patreon. You go to a lot of Patreon pages and you'll see that they have, for example, a starting tier, which is like $1 a month. And that's your basic access. And then, I don't know, $5 a month, the next tier up, and you get increased benefits for that. And then maybe another tier for more money, and then another one for more money, and so on and so on and so on. This is all fairly normal on Patreon. I don't have any of that. I have your basic $1 a month tier, and then if anybody wishes to donate more than that, that's entirely up to them. But $1 a month, because that's the minimum amount that Patreon allows you to have. So that's what I've gone for. And that's what this email's about. It's probably best if I just read it to you. Here it is. I noticed that you still have a $1 tier, and because of that I wanted to reach out. It's the only tier that I have, but thanks for noticing. We've learned that removing your $1 tier is one of the best ways to increase your growth on Patreon, and I want to encourage you to give it a shot. I know it can be intimidating to update your membership structure or know what the right decision is for you. So I wanted to address the why, the how, and the what to make sure that you feel super confident about making this change. Removing your $1 tier and raising your base price is a proven way to increase your growth. Base tiers of $2, $3, or $5 have higher conversion and retention rates, whatever the fuck they are, compared to $1 base tiers. This suggests that people are actually more likely to become your patron and stick around longer if your base tier is higher than $1. Once you factor in fees and eventually taxes, you end up taking home significantly less than the $1. It goes on like this for quite some time. I'm sure you're starting to get the picture. Basically, Patreon really don't seem to like $1 monthly donations, and they're doing their level best to encourage everybody who uses Patreon to scrap them and introduce more expensive starting donations. How about no? In fact, how about fuck you, Patreon? How dare you try to impose a lower limit on people's generosity? I was very reluctant to set that Patreon page up in the first place because, to a man of my generation, it just seemed an awful lot like begging. And I realise that this is a generational thing. I mean, today's generation really just don't seem to have the same attitude towards donations. I mean, if you look at people that live stream on Twitch and make their living mostly from the donations that get made during their streams, it's really not a thing with the younger generation at all. But you guys kept messaging me and saying, we'd love a way to support you more directly. Have you thought about setting up a Patreon page? And I kind of ummed and ahed and avoided the issue for a long time, and then, YouTube started being YouTube, the apocalypse, the Copper Act, and so on and so on. Various things conspired to make YouTube look a lot less reliable as a way of ensuring an income than it previously had been. So I caved in and I created the Patreon page. And I set the bar at $1 because that was as low as it would go. And in today's economic situation, for a lot of people out there, $1 a month isn't nothing. And it's all very much appreciated because it's what you guys are choosing to do of your own free will to express your support and appreciation to me. And now Patreon are trying to tell me that all of you guys who do donate $1 are cheap scumbags and you're not worth my time. Seriously? When was the last time you walked past a homeless guy on the street, gave him $1, and instead of him saying thank you very much and wishing you a good day, he said, hey, you cheap bastard, where's my other $1? Because that's what this is. That's basically what this is. Why do Patreon not seem to understand that? I don't know. Maybe I'm just too old. I just don't fucking get it. Safe to say, I'm not going to be increasing the minimum donation tier on Patreon. Because fuck you, Patreon. I've received a couple of messages over the years from people saying that they wish there was another way to support me other than Patreon. Basically because fuck Patreon. Suddenly I'm starting to understand. Incidentally, if you do fall into that category, every video that I upload to YouTube also gets uploaded to Floatplane. Floatplane is a subscription-based video streaming platform set up by Linus Tech Tips. You may have heard of them. They're fairly big on YouTube. Unfortunately, the minimum subscription level is $3 a month, so it is, 3 times more expensive than Patreon. But it does allow you to watch all of my videos in glorious 1080p, actually. If I ever get around to recording in 4K, I will be able to upload in 4K as well. Some of you do already have subscriptions on Floatplane. Again, thank you very much for that too. But if you were looking for another way to support the channel without YouTube or Patreon getting their filthy hands on your hard-earned money, you might wish to take a look at Floatplane as well. Anyway, that's about it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. There is one final thing that I did want to talk about before we finish, because it has been an awfully long time since we mentioned dumb shit that Rita said. And ironically, this is something that she said quite some time ago, but I had forgotten about. And when you hear what it is that she said and did, you'll understand why it's ironic that I forgot about it. So, the thing is, Rita has a terrible memory. I mean, occasionally, every now and then, I'll forget what it is that I was talking about halfway through a sentence, right? I'm sure it happens to all of us. I hope it happens to all of us, because if it's not, it's probably early onset Alzheimer's. God, I hope not. But Rita is absolutely terrible. Like, every day I'll be having conversations with her, and by the end of the conversation she's forgotten what it was about. Okay. Her attention span really is that short. So, about a month and a half ago, I found her staring at this big-ass pot of pills. I didn't know what the pills were. I thought they were vitamin pills or something. She buys vitamin pills and stuff. And she was looking at it with this, like, oh, shit, expression on her face. So I said, what's the matter? She said, I'm going to have to buy more of these. I was like, what the hell? It looks full. She says, it is full. Well, why do you need to buy more? Well, they're out of date by now. When did you buy them? She said, oh, about 6 months ago. So I took the bottle off her. And I'm not looking at the label yet or anything here, because I'm looking for the use-by date. And I said, oh, you've still got 6 months on these. These are good for a year. She was like, oh, that's fantastic. And then I actually looked at what they were. And they were memory improvement pills. She bought a year's supply of memory improvement pills 6 months previously, took them for about a week, and then forgot to take them. For 6 months. And then I thought to myself, this is hilarious. I must remember to talk about this in Mingles with Jingles. And then I forgot. Until now, around about a month and a half later. Maybe I should start taking her pills. Oh, Rita. Don't ever change. Anyway, that's it for this apparently shorter than average episode of Mingles with Jingles, which is now coming up to 23 minutes. Because once I start talking about something, it's almost impossible to make me stop. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, sorry, I need to calm down. Let's try again. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've all had a great weekend. And as always, take care. And I'll catch you next time.